Some days I sit down to work and no matter how hard I try, it seems that I just can't get focused. I have my to-do list and I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but when I sit down at my computer and I start actually trying to work, it just doesn't go how I want it to go. Thoughts keep popping up into my head, I keep remembering other things I need to work on. I just feel this block towards especially creative work, and it's really hard for me to get in the zone or get anything done at all. Lately, I've been experiencing this a lot, and I think that it starts to happen to me a lot more when my work isn't challenging me as much. But I needed to figure out a way to overcome it because sometimes you just have to keep doing the work so that you keep making progress so that you can come to those bigger, more interesting challenges. I figured out a few things to do that have really helped me to get focused and actually get my work done on those days when I'm feeling completely unfocused and scattered. Now, I can't take complete credit for these ideas that I'm going to share with you today because several of them were inspired by a book I recently read called One Small Step Can Change Your Life, which actually was recommended to me by one of you guys. Now, the book One Small Step Can Change Your Life is all about the Japanese principle of Kaizen, which is basically making small improvements or taking small steps to achieve big things. And I've known for a long time that breaking something down into really small steps can help you to feel less overwhelmed and to know exactly what you need to be working on right now. But the book One Small Step Can Change Your Life really opened my eyes about how small these steps can be. It doesn't have to be write the blog post. I mean, that is a small step, but it can just be come up with a title for the blog post or write the first sentence of the blog post. Something really, really small that will seem really easy, because if you're having a tough time with getting focused on your work, then you need to make this as easy as possible so that you can overcome this. So the first step towards getting focused and getting back in your work is really to just figure out what is the next tiny little step that I can take, something that's not going to overwhelm you or maybe even scare you or trigger that fight or flight response that makes you want to just head out to the kitchen and grab a snack or start scrolling social media on your phone, but instead allows you to approach your work without that fear and without that overwhelm. Once I know what that tiny little step is, then it's time for the next step, which is to set a small deadline. Now, we all know how motivating deadlines can be and how much they can force us to just get our work done, but sometimes if we try to set deadlines for ourselves, they end up seeming just really arbitrary, and so we ignore them. We're like, we have to get all this done in an hour, but we know that we don't really have to get it all done in an hour, so we just kind of ignore that, and especially if you're having trouble staying focused, it doesn't prevent you from getting distracted. So instead, what I've been doing is I've been pulling out my phone, using the timer on my phone to set a really small deadline. I'm talking 5 minutes. Now, I know that 5 minutes seems like it's not going to make much of an impact in the amount of work that you have to get done. You think you have like 8 hours of work to get done. How is 5 minutes even going to help? But I find that the shorter the timer I set is, the more focused I get, the more diligent I am, the faster I work, so I get so much more done in just that 5 minutes. And also, because it's such a small amount of time, I don't get overwhelmed by it. So if I've been having trouble, bringing my thoughts together and actually sitting down and doing the work, then by setting that 5-minute timer, I'm able to actually be like, okay, I can do this for 5 minutes. Like, I've got this. And that might be writing a blog post or answering some emails. It also might be doing chores in my house. So maybe I need to, vacuum the floor or wash the dishes, but it's like, oh, there's so many dishes in the sink or there's so much laundry. But if I set a timer for just 5 minutes and I make that really small deadline, it's so much less overwhelming and I can actually focus on it. Now, the third part of this process is the part that is the newest and also the part that might seem the most trivial or the strangest, or like the thing that seems like it won't really help or make that big of a difference. But when I've been feeling really unfocused, this has been that extra little something that has really helped. So here's what it is. It is small rewards. So far we have small steps, and then we have small deadlines, and now small rewards. Now, these rewards aren't maybe what you might think they are. So basically what's happening here is I decide what I'm gonna do, I set the timer, I work for 5 minutes, and then at the end of that 5 minutes, I get this small reward. But it's not so much like a treat reward. It's not something like, let's go eat a snack, or let's read a book for a while, or let's watch a show for a while, something that I would find like relaxing and something I would do for fun. It's more just something to break up my work so that I have these specific little increments of work, 5 minutes of work, and then do something else, just to kind of break it up. So here's a few different examples of these different rewards that I'm doing after I do these small bits of work. I might light a candle. I might write in my journal for just about 1 minute. I might tidy up part of my office. Or I might go out to the kitchen and get a drink of water or make myself a cup of tea. I also might even just like draw a picture. Now, I'm not an artist by any means, so I want to share that with you so that you get an idea of how random these things are. They're just something to do to change my brain activity, to kind of break up the pattern so that I can then refocus. It's just about being intentional. It's kind of like when you're meditating and you let your thoughts go and then you bring them back to your breath. And you try to stay focused on your breath, but every time they wander, you bring them back to your breath. And if you can do that more intentionally, you'll be a lot more successful at meditating. And if you can work with more focus and more specifically, you can be a lot more successful at working, especially if you're having trouble working. So I work for 5 minutes on one specific little task, and then I do one of these random little things just to break it up. I find that this works best if I decide what the small reward or task is going to be before I start the 5 minutes. That tells me, I'm going to do this 5 minutes of work and then I'm going to do this. And that helps me stay more focused on doing the work for even those 5 minutes. Like I said, this is an emergency strategy. It's not for everyday work. It's for when you're having trouble. So I say, okay, I'm going to light this candle after I do this 5 minutes of work. I sit down, I do the 5 minutes of work, the timer goes off, I light the candle, and then I decide what I'm going to do next, and I set the timer again, and the process starts all over. Okay, so that's basically what I do when I'm unfocused, but let me share with you a few additional thoughts to make this work a lot better. First of all, I just want to let you know that I do not think this is the most productive way to work by any means. You definitely can get more done if you get really deep in a task. You're able to sustain that focus for a longer period of time. Interrupting yourself every 5 minutes is definitely going to make you work a little bit slower overall. Like, it's gonna make your work take a little bit more time, but if you're being really unfocused and you're getting distracted constantly, that's gonna make your work take way longer. When I get into that unfocused state, my work that should take about 4 hours, if I like write out all the times, it ends up taking me all day long. I'm talking 10, 12 hours, and at the end of that time, I might even still not be done with everything I wanted to get done. But by using the system of these small steps and small deadlines and small rewards, I'm able to get that 4 hours of work done in 5 or 6 hours, which is a lot more reasonable than all day long. Second, now this is super important. The main thing that distracts me when I am feeling unfocused, the main thing that's getting me away from my work, is random thoughts that crop up, all sorts of ideas, things I should do, things I might want to do later, things I want to research, just all sorts of thoughts. Now, normally when I'm not in this super unfocused state, if I have this random thought crop up, I can deal with it then. I can either research it for a minute or two, or I can write it down in my schedule for a future date, something like that, something to actually deal with it. But when I'm feeling so unfocused, I find that any little rabbit trail I go down just becomes this huge temptation to get away from my work. And so instead, what I do when I'm using this system of small steps and small deadlines and small rewards is instead, when I have one of those random thoughts, I just scribble it down, just on my planner. Not on a specific day, I don't try to deal with it, I just write down whatever the thought was. And then at the end of the 5 minutes, if I want to deal with it in some way, I can choose to do that. But I'm just recording it just to kind of get it out of my head, so I'm not worried about forgetting it, so that it's the tiniest bit dealt with, so I'm doing something with that thought, but without doing anything that could turn into a rabbit trail, okay? Scribbling down that thought, like, where's that gonna go? It's not gonna go anywhere. It's just gonna stay there. I know that it's taken care of, at least in a minimal sense, and I can get back to it later. Okay, well that's pretty much all there is to it. I hope that if you are feeling unfocused, you'll give this a try, because I find that it has helped me so much to actually get back into my work on those days when I feel like I can't get anything done. Don't make it more complicated than you need to, but at the same time, don't minimize it, because I know that this seems like it might be kind of like what you're already doing. Maybe you're already giving yourself deadlines, maybe you're already, deciding what the next task is, but by breaking it down into these tiny little steps, what is the next tiny thing I need to do, setting a deadline of 5 minutes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes max, and deciding to break up your work with activities to just change the pace so that you're able to refocus. I find that these steps work together really, really well. And finally, I just want to reiterate, this is not the way I normally work. It's only for emergency situations when I'm having trouble getting something done. If you enjoyed this video, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss my next video. I make 2 videos every single week, and I would love to have you join me again next time. Also, if you haven't already joined our Facebook group, I think that you might really enjoy that as well. I run a free Facebook group called Ready, Set, Launch that is for motivated goal achievers, people who have big dreams that they're trying to work towards, people who are interested in starting online businesses and other things like that. And if you have a big goal that you're trying to achieve, then I would love to have you come and join us. I think you'd find it really encouraging and motivating. It's also a great place to connect with me because I'm in the group pretty much every single day. So if you have any questions for me or anything, you can just post them in the group and then I normally can get back to you. If you're interested in joining, like I said, it's completely free and there's a link down below in the description where you can check it out. Okay, well that is everything for today, but thank you so much for watching and I look forward to seeing you again next time.